The fight for Thiruvananthapuram was much tighter than we thought. That's the word coming in from Shashi Tharoor, who won the seat by over 16,000 votes. Speaking about BJP's chances in the south of India, he said that the BJP still had a long way to go and pointed out that there was no appeal for communalism in those areas. Here's that conversation. How does it feel to be elected once again to represent the people of Thiruvananthapuram? How do you reflect on the fight that was for Trivandrum?
It feels very special, I have to say, Parikshit. First of all, never in the history of our parliament or of Thiruvananthapuram has anyone been elected to 4 terms. So I was battling some rather unusual odds, as it were, in chasing this particular dream. The second thing is that it was a much tighter fight than we thought it would be. And I must give all credit to both my opponents. In addition to Rajeev Chandrasekhar, who came so close, the CPI candidate, Pannyan Ravindran, who's an ex-MP, took 2.5 lakh votes. So there was a three-cornered fight. Speaking through in these circumstances has been a big relief.
Right. Were you tense at any point during the counting? When did you really think that now you will make it across the finish line?
Well, I think, we were keeping track of which areas had been counted. And the one thing that kept us calm while his lead initially mounted was the knowledge that some of our strongest zones, particularly the coastal areas and the rural areas, were yet to be counted. And those have been where I've had very, very strong support in the course of this time. I think I lost fair bits of the city, which were much more susceptible to the argument the BJP made that if you vote for their guy, you get a minister, you vote for Tharoor and you get an opposition leader. And that kind of thing sways certain minds and hearts in a capital city. But having said all of that, we stayed calm, and in the end, the narrative turned just as we expected it to.
But did you expect the fight to be this close? Did you have any conversation with Rajeev Chandrasekhar after the election result?
No, I mean, normally one expects the winner to receive the call, so I haven't received any call. But I did express my appreciation of their spirited fight on all my TV messaging immediately after winning.
Right. Now that the opposition has come back, has made a strong comeback, a revival of sorts, especially in states like Uttar Pradesh. What do you think the opposition now needs to do in terms of setting the agenda, setting the narrative going forward?
Well, I have to say that the parliamentary system rules are skewed in such a way that it's difficult for the opposition to set the agenda, in that the government determines what business it will introduce in parliament. We will try, and we now have the numbers, I think, to impress upon the Speaker the need to accommodate our concerns. And we would like to see a serious debate in Parliament and serious policy initiatives to tackle unemployment. We had come up with some ideas in our manifesto we'd be quite willing to share with the government. We'd also like to see some serious efforts to deal with price rise and to deal with the fact that all the benefits of the much vaunted economic growth of this government have been confined to the top 20% of our population and possibly even less. So we need to see the narrative change. We are not at all against liberalization, and we are not against the business community, who I know are your watchers. And I want to assure them that many of us value their immense contributions as job creators and as wealth creators for our country. At the same time, we want to ensure that the government does pay some attention to the needs of those who've been left out and marginalized, and we'll try and do that. In Parliament, I think what we want to see is a much more collegial approach than we have seen in this government's tenure, particularly in the second term, when they were really quite awful to work with. It used to be said of UPA parliamentary affairs ministers that they would spend more time in the opposition benches than in their own. We've not seen that with the BJP. They tend to stay aloof and issue diktats and not very friendly ones. I think it's important now that they realize that it's in their interest and in the interest of the nation to work constructively with the opposition.
Right. But at the same time, there is no place for complacency for the opposition. Am I right? Because, yes, the opposition has done much better, but it's far from being able to form majority of its own. And I think after yesterday's meeting at Mr. Kharge's residence, there is realization that the opposition will not be able to form government, and you have to play the role of a constructive opposition in Parliament. Where do you think were the missing links, or the areas where the Congress, the opposition, could not do well and maybe some mistakes, if you could share with us?
Well, I mean, I think we still have to do a lot of serious introspection about the few places where we went wrong. I mean, I would like to see what the local units have to say about their own experiences. We did not expect to lose every seat in Delhi. We did not expect to lose every seat in Himachal, where I myself campaigned. We did not expect to lose every seat in Madhya Pradesh. And I think there'll have to be some serious analysis in these places. There already is an exercise being undertaken in Karnataka about the fact that though we considerably improved our record from 2019, we went from 1 seat to 9 seats. We really had higher expectations, especially given our resounding success in the state assembly elections. So look, it's part of the job of politicians to try and understand these things. And we're certainly looking forward to seeing what comes out. And I don't know what the Congress president will determine in terms of an overall view, but already I'm sure at the local level, there will be some analysis going on. By and large, however, it's a happy story. By and large, we've done well. We've done better than expected in many places, and we've done as well as expected in some places. And I would also add that we have every reason to be proud that our allies did as well as they did. It's quite remarkable, isn't it, that you've had the first Samajwadi Party scoring 37, that Trinamool scored 29, and that the DMK won every seat they fought. They've been generous in giving away seats to others, but the DMK has done very, very well. And these mean that we have robust allies, strong allies in parliament. We're not going to feel alone at all, as it were, in standing up to anything unreasonable that the government might come up with. And the government, understanding this, will have all the more reasons to want to work cooperatively and collegially with the opposition.
Right. We would also like to ask you, and we would be interested to know who would be the leader of opposition in the Lok Sabha, who would be the leader of the party in the Rajya Sabha. Now, especially the Lok Sabha, would you be pitching for Rahul Gandhi to take on the LOP's post?
Yes, I think that's a no-brainer. I think everybody in the party sees that this would be a terrific, voice to put up against the voices of the government. And we certainly hope that he will take this on. I mean, the challenge in the past has been that Rahulji has always felt that he had too many nationwide responsibilities to fully do justice to the role. But I hope in the changed circumstances that he might well want to take it on. We'll have to see. There is a working committee meeting on Saturday at which I expect some of this to be discussed as well.
Right. Now, as far as the Congress and the opposition agenda for the upcoming state elections, things are not over. You've got an election in Haryana in November, followed by Maharashtra also in November, then Delhi early next year, Bihar later in 2025. So good 4 or 5 important states going to polls in the next 12 to 16 months. What does the Congress now need to do here onwards?
Well, I think this has given us a huge boost, not just us, but other opposition parties, for the assembly elections to follow. There's once again the widespread perception across the country that we are a viable alternative to the BJP. And if we are a viable alternative to them nationally, then we can be a viable alternative to them locally. And I'm very, very optimistic and confident that we're going to see some very, very good results in Haryana for one place, and possibly some other places. I mean, I have no reason to disbelieve the general euphoria I'm getting from party karyakartas everywhere that feel we've turned the corner. We've been through a rather dark night for a couple of terms, and I think this is now the beginning of the dawn.
Right. You feel this is the beginning of the dawn. Any lessons that you would take away from the 2024 election campaign for the Congress party? You were able to win about 90 seats on its own. Where does the party need to work harder?
99, actually. And I think
99.
if we hadn't had a couple of rebels, it would be 101. But those rebels might yet come and rejoin us, we hope. But I will say that if you look at the Congress's performance on the whole, we got a number of things right. I think we got the messaging right. We touched issues that really mattered to people. We were able to remind people this election was about them and not about temples or about divine messengers sitting in the Prime Minister's office. It was about who was able to look after their basic interests. And it's striking, for example, that this message resonated so effectively in Ayodhya and Faizabad, which the BJP lost after having treated the public in such a cavalier manner in that constituency while they were patting themselves on the back about the Ram Mandir. You're seeing the right messaging, and that's a big thing. You're seeing a lot of energy from the leadership. I think Mr. Kharge, Rahul Gandhi, Priyanka Gandhi, many others campaigned extensively throughout the country, addressing multiple rallies, multiple audiences. And I know that 2 of them even came to my constituency and campaigned for me, and I'm very grateful. This is the kind of support we all need to see. As far as the work at the ground level is concerned, I think we did very well in some places, and we were somewhat more patchy in other places. The need to rebuild the grassroots organization, which is always clear to many of us, has in some ways been reaffirmed by those places where we didn't do as well as we might have done. But at the end of the day, these are details. I think on the whole, the Congress is on the right track, and that right track is an upswing.
Right. And overall, how do you see the BJP's performance in the South Zone? They were expecting 1 or 2 seats in Kerala. They managed 1 at least. They put up a tight fight in other. Tamil Nadu, they increased their vote share but could not win any seats. They won big in Andhra Pradesh and also a few seats in Telangana. So overall, how do you see their performance in South? But in Karnataka, they lost a lot compared
to... Back to your question for only one answer, but I'm not going to give it to you. The fact is that in Kerala, they went to 16% and in Tamil Nadu to 10%. These are not exactly earth-shaking numbers. Talking about an increased vote share when you've gone from 13 to 16 or when you've gone from 7 to 10 does not suggest a massive, overwhelming transformation. There still is a long way to go. In Andhra Pradesh, their successes were due almost entirely to their partnership with Chandrababu Naidu's Telugu Desam party. And therefore, I think we have to understand that there were limits to the BJP's role in the South, and those limits are defined by the communalism that's inherent in their narrative. There is no appeal for communalism in the South. We live with each other comfortably with all minorities. We don't consider them minorities. We consider them to be just like us. And they don't have a minority complex in places like Kerala. I can assure you that there is no Muslim Malayali or Christian Malayali who considers himself or herself in any way different from a Hindu Malayali. This is the difference between us and the ethos from which the BJP emerges that the BJP has never been able to understand. And until they get over this, they're never really going to be able to crack this magic number. Now, I know that in the South, they tried a different appreciation. They tried to reach out to minorities, particularly Christians. But, you know, it was fascinating to watch in Kerala over Christmas, the BJP so-called Sneha Sandesha Yatra, where they were giving a message of affection to the Christian community. And the same Christians were looking at 230 burned churches in Manipur. They were looking at assaults on Christian pastors in northern states. They were looking at worshippers being dragged out of churches and beaten up in Christmas week. And they said, if this is the way the BJP behaves elsewhere, say they really need to reform themselves nationally if they're going to have to appeal in the South. And I'm not denying that there might be good things in their messaging, but they will not be able to get those good things heard as long as they have continued to daub themselves in the war paint of communal bigotry and negative messaging. That is just not going to work for them in the South.
And finally, sir, we have to wind up, and I believe your time is also running out. Any one key foreign policy challenge which you think the government and the opposition need to address together in the months to come?
Well, look, I think the government has has a mixed record on foreign policy. It's done some things very well, and it should continue building on them. The outreach to the Islamic world and the Gulf countries, which has certainly been damaged, I'm sure, by their reporting of the Islamophobia that characterized Mr. Modi's election messaging. But otherwise, the outreach has been good. The relationship with some key countries, the US notably, has been positive. They have not handled the China situation very well, and I think they need an all-party discussion on that, which they've been reluctant to have. And they need to do much more about the neighborhood. Are we just going to let our relations with some of our neighbors rot and stagnate? These are issues that I think we need to talk to the BJP about, but they've got to be willing to listen. You know, for the first time in the history of our parliament, where the External Affairs Committee of Parliament has always been chaired by an opposition MP, they took it away and they gave it to a BJP MP, thereby ending any pretense of bipartisanship in foreign policy. So it's they who have to make amends and come back to work more positively with the opposition on foreign policy as on everything else.
All right, so that was Shashi Tharoor saying that Rahul Gandhi would be a terrific choice for leader of opposition. And he also said that there is a limit to the BJP's popularity in South India, and that's not changed even with winning one seat in Kerala. Coming up, we talk to one of India's youngest MPs now, 25-year-old Shambhavi Chaudhary. She's on her way to Parliament after winning from Bihar's Samastipur on her LJP Ram Vilas Paswan ticket. I spoke to her on her career choices, her ideas for Bihar, and how she expects to bring about change in the way young politicians are perceived.